Language does not simply communicate thought, it shapes thought. Depending on the words a person uses, the extent of their vocabulary, what they have learned, what they are capable of speaking about, and the way they carry on a dialogue with themselves, it seems to shape both culture and development. A person with a limited vocabulary experiences language differently than someone who spends a great deal of time thinking, speaking, learning new words, and exploring ideas. This is not to say that one person is more or less intelligent than another. It is simply an observation that language influences how we think, how we organize our experience, and how we relate to ourselves and the world around us. If a person lacks the words for something, then the thing may still be seen, but it cannot be understood in the same way. If you see something and cannot say what it is called, how it works, where it came from, or what it does, then the experience remains incomplete. The perception is there, but the distinctions are not. Language provides those distinctions. Imagine a person who has never seen a tractor. They may look at it and have no framework through which to understand what they are seeing. The object exists, but meaning has not yet formed around it. Language, knowledge, and experience work together to create that meaning. This is why internal dialogue is important. A person's ability to think about their own thinking depends, at least in part, upon the distinctions available to them. Vocabulary is not merely a collection of words. It is a collection of distinctions. The more distinctions that can be made, the more finely experience can be examined. This does not mean that all people think the same way. Consider a person raised within a culture rich in philosophy, science, mathematics, literature, and symbolic systems. Compare this with a person raised within an entirely different environment, possessing different traditions, different concerns, and different forms of knowledge. Neither person is necessarily more intelligent than the other. Yet the structure of their thought, the questions they ask, and the distinctions they make may be very different because the symbolic framework through which they interpret reality is different. Before language can exist, there must first be experience. Before there can be a word, there must be perception. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, sensation, movement, and pattern all precede language. A child is not born knowing that experiences can be divided into categories and represented by symbols. At first, there may simply be experience itself. Gradually, patterns emerge. Certain sounds become associated with certain experiences. Eventually, the child discovers that sounds can stand in place of things. The difficulty is that once language is learned, it becomes nearly impossible to imagine existence before language. We attempt to think about a pre-linguistic state using a mind already constructed from words. Language becomes so deeply woven into thought that the two appear inseparable. Perhaps language began naturally as sounds associated with experiences. Perhaps meaning emerged gradually from repeated patterns. Whatever its origin, language eventually became the primary medium through which human beings think about themselves and the world. Yet language may also become a form of entrapment. Words define, categorize, separate, label, and organize reality. Over time, we begin mistaking the symbol for the thing itself. We know the word and believe we know the reality. We inherit descriptions, definitions, systems, and concepts from others and begin experiencing reality through those inherited structures. The more knowledge accumulates, the more we risk becoming confined within the symbolic systems that knowledge creates. Science evolves. Language evolves. New discoveries appear. New names are invented. New categories emerge. The structure continually changes. Human beings become increasingly immersed within a reality composed of descriptions, interpretations, and symbolic representations. In this sense, language may not be the final form of communication. The language of the future may be no language at all. This does not mean thoughts spoken silently from one mind into another mind. It does not mean words transmitted telepathically. It points toward something more direct. Instead of converting experience into symbols and then reconstructing those symbols in another mind, communication may eventually become the direct sharing of meaning itself. Language currently functions as a bridge between minds. Experience becomes thought. Thought becomes words. Words become sound. Sound is heard and translated back into thought. Meaning is constantly being converted from one form into another. A future form of communication may remove much of this translation process. Meaning may be transmitted more directly without requiring elaborate symbolic structures. One way of imagining this is through information compression. Imagine listening to an audiobook while gradually increasing its speed. As the speed increases, more information becomes compressed into less time. The volume must often be increased. Eventually, the words begin sounding like peeps, squeaks, and compressed sounds. To an untrained listener, the information appears lost. Yet with enough adaptation, meaning can still be extracted. At the highest speeds, concentration becomes absolute. Any distraction breaks the process. Any movement disrupts comprehension. Vast amounts of information become condensed into tiny units. This does not mean future communication will literally consist of peeps and squeaks. The example points toward the possibility that increasingly large amounts of meaning may eventually be contained within increasingly small signals. The future of communication may therefore involve greater information density rather than more words. Reality itself may be understood as a continual movement and transformation of information. Like water flowing through different forms, information changes shape while retaining continuity. Yet one must consider not only the water, but also the space surrounding the water. The pattern is not found solely in the content itself, but also within the relationships, structures, and spaces that allow the content to exist. Perhaps communication evolves in the same way. The movement may be away from larger symbolic structures and toward increasingly direct forms of meaning. Not the elimination of meaning, but the elimination of the distance between meaning and its expression. Language began as distinctions emerging from experience. Its future may be the compression of those distinctions into forms so immediate that language, as we presently understand it, is no longer necessary. Something important that has not yet been mentioned is the process by which experience itself is translated. We take in light, sound, touch, taste, smell, and all the senses, and somehow these experiences are transformed into electrical and biochemical activity. It is remarkable to consider that what we call reality is experienced through patterns of energy that become electrical signals interpreted by what we call the brain, which in a broader sense is inseparable from the body as a whole. When viewed in unity, the body is not separate from the earth either. There is an electromagnetic and biochemical process occurring that science attempts to describe through chemistry, biology, physics, and related fields. These disciplines provide descriptions of the process, yet they do not necessarily explain the fundamental nature of what is taking place. At a certain point, one begins to see something divine or spiritual within this process. These two are merely words that we place upon experiences we are attempting to express and define. We describe reality through thoughts, ideas, concepts, and language, yet all of these arise through electrical activity, chemical reactions, and forms of energy whose essential nature remains mysterious. We cannot fully say what light is. We cannot fully say what electricity is. We cannot fully say what mind is. We cannot fully say what matter is. We create models, descriptions, and theories, but the underlying reality remains elusive. Earlier, the analogy was made between water and the space surrounding it. The water may be understood as a symbol of spirit, yet the space around the water is equally important. Relationship itself depends upon movement. Without movement, there can be no relationship, no interaction, and no exchange. This movement appears in many forms. It appears as thought, imagination, intention, and idea. It appears as emotion and feeling. It appears physically through action, holding a hand, embracing another person, giving a gift, offering a flower, writing a poem, or speaking words of kindness. All of these are expressions of relationship moving through different forms. As language develops and expands, and as human beings acquire the time and ability to reflect upon experience, new possibilities emerge. Poetry develops. Music develops. Instruments are invented. Experiments become possible. New understandings arise through the study of sound, octaves, color, spectrum, pressure, rhythm, proportion, and countless other relationships. Language allows increasingly refined distinctions to be made. These distinctions permit increasingly complex forms of reflection, investigation, and creativity. This is not a criticism of tribal peoples or traditional cultures. Quite the opposite. Such peoples may possess forms of understanding that modern civilization has largely forgotten. They may live closer to the earth, understand animals more deeply, maintain greater harmony with nature, and experience forms of peace that industrial societies often struggle to attain. The point is not that one mode of life is superior to another. The point is that different conditions produce different forms of consciousness, different forms of language, and different ways of relating to reality. Over time, human language has expanded through countless developments, classifications, observations, and symbolic systems. Terms from ancient traditions, philosophical systems, Latin, Greek, science, mathematics, and modern languages have accumulated layer upon layer of distinctions. As language expands, so too does the range of relationships that can be perceived, examined, described, and understood. As it stands now, humanity possesses many different languages. Some may be considered major languages, such as Chinese, Japanese, English, Russian, German, and many others. Yet there are also more subtle forms of language continually emerging, evolving, and transforming. Languages mix together. Words change. Meanings shift. Pronunciations evolve. People constantly modify the way they speak and the words they choose to use. This process is not merely changing language. It is orienting consciousness itself. When a person's vocabulary expands, their capacity for distinction expands along with it. As more words are learned, more definitions are acquired. As more definitions are acquired, more aspects of reality become available for examination and understanding. Knowledge and language develop together. The more distinctions a person can make, the more they are capable of recognizing relationships, patterns, ideas, and concepts that previously remained unnoticed. At the same time, knowledge develops differently depending upon what a person pays attention to and the environment in which they live. One individual may possess deep knowledge in one area while another develops understanding in a completely different direction. The language available to each person helps determine what distinctions they are able to perceive and explore. This contributes greatly to the vast differences observed among human beings. Differences in behavior, attitude, worldview, philosophy, religion, ethics, morality, values, and belief all emerge through the frameworks people use to understand reality. The way a person thinks about God, religion, good and evil, right and wrong, pleasure and pain, purpose, meaning, and existence itself is influenced by the symbolic structures available to them. Language provides those structures. As language develops, consciousness develops alongside it. New words create new distinctions. New distinctions create new possibilities for thought. New possibilities for thought create new ways of relating to reality. Because language is constantly changing, consciousness is constantly being reoriented through that change. Every generation inherits a symbolic system and then modifies it. Words gain new meanings. Old meanings disappear. Entire ways of thinking emerge, transform, and sometimes vanish altogether. Language is therefore not merely a tool used by consciousness. It is one of the primary mechanisms through which consciousness organizes, interprets, and continually reshapes its understanding of reality. What I have learned through studying language is that words can be approached in more than one way. Because I am familiar with English, that is the language I have been given through which to analyze and explore my thoughts. Most people hear a word, understand its definition, and move on. If they do not know the definition, they look it up, learn it, and continue. That is one level of relationship with language. Yet over time, I began noticing another dimension. Words no longer appear to me merely as definitions. They also appear as symbols. Letters are abstract. Numbers are abstract. Words are abstract. They are not physical things in themselves. They are representations. When I hear a word, I still hear its definition and meaning, but I also begin observing its structure. I notice the number of letters. I notice which letters are present. I observe the first letters, the last letters, the arrangement of vowels and consonants, the syllables, the capitalization, and the relationships between the parts that make up the whole. Sometimes I examine the first half of a word and then the second half. Sometimes a single letter stands out. Sometimes all the letters matter. Sometimes none of them do. The significance is not fixed. It depends entirely upon what is being observed and what is revealed through the observation. What fascinates me is that language appears less like something arbitrarily invented and more like something discovered. It is as though certain patterns already exist and are gradually uncovered. We believe we are naming things for the first time, yet there is a sense in which we are discovering names and relationships that were already present, waiting to be recognized. Whether that intuition is ultimately true or not is beside the point. What matters is the way language begins revealing deeper layers of symbolism. Letters cease being merely letters. A word ceases being merely a definition. The structure itself begins speaking. A point connected to another point by a line. A circle. A curve. An oval. A wave. A shape. A relationship. Geometry appears within language. Symbolism appears within language. Meaning begins operating on multiple levels simultaneously. One level contains the ordinary definition. Another level contains symbolic relationships. Another level contains personal insight, contemplation, meditation, and prayer. Through this process, language becomes a doorway rather than merely a tool. It becomes possible to hear a word, understand its conventional meaning, and simultaneously perceive something beyond the definition itself. The word functions as a symbol pointing toward deeper patterns and relationships. What those patterns reveal is ultimately personal. No two people will necessarily discover the same things. Each person must explore and verify such observations through their own contemplation and experience. In my own observations, certain symbolic principles continually emerge. The point and the line have come to represent what I perceive as expressions of divine masculinity. Curves, circles, ovals, bends, and waves have come to represent what I perceive as expressions of divine femininity. These are not merely definitions, but symbolic relationships that emerge through contemplation. I could spend a great deal of time attempting to explain these observations in greater detail, but that is not my purpose here. The important point is simply this. Language can be understood through its definitions, but it can also be explored through its symbolism. When this occurs, words cease being merely descriptions of reality and begin revealing deeper relationships within reality itself. What lies beyond that is left for each individual to discover through their own experience, reflection, meditation, and prayer. The development itself is the answer. The sentence. Sometimes all the letters matter. Sometimes none of them do. Doesn't reflect what you are saying. What you described is the opposite. The letters always matter. The arrangement matters. The capitalization matters. The vowels and consonants matter. The position matters. The structure matters. What changes is not whether the letters matter, but which aspects of them become significant in a particular observation. A closer expression of your view would be: sometimes a single letter stands out. Sometimes the relationship between several letters stands out. Sometimes the first letter becomes significant. Sometimes the entire structure of the word becomes significant. Yet the letters themselves are never meaningless, for every part of the word participates in the symbolic structure being observed. We will continue from here in another discussion, as I do not feel that I have explained the symbolism of the point, the line, and the curve as clearly as I would like. There is much more that could be said about that subject, and I will go into greater detail in another video. For now, I will leave it here and continue the exploration at a later time. Amen. Let it be so.